All right, well, what is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. I'm your host, Coach J.K. McLeod, and we are kicking off a pretty quick one here for you. So I'm not going to really belabor the intro. I will, however, as always, say thank you for choosing to press play on the Help Me Understand podcast. I extremely appreciate it. I don't even know if that was worded correctly. And you get the vibe. I appreciate you pressing play. I know that you have other podcasts that you can and most likely do consume. So whether the Help Me Understand podcast is part of your regular listening queue, which I hope it is, or if you just happen to press play on this particular episode, thank you either way. I truly appreciate it. So I jotted something down that I want to riff on for just a few minutes here, and then we will get things moving on the rest of the day. If you're listening to this on the day that it's released, it's being recorded and released on Monday, February 9th, and I think it's something that can be applicable really for any particular day. What I jotted down here as I was in my training session is the flexibility you want is rooted in the structure you are avoiding. So again, what I jotted down in my notebook is the flexibility you want is rooted in the structure you are avoiding. I want to share some context on where that's coming from for me in particular right now, and it's through the filter or the lens of the foundational fitness habits. Those are eat well, sleep enough, and exercise regularly. So again, whenever I'm referencing what I call the foundational fitness habits, I am referencing specifically the three habits of eat well, sleep enough, and exercise regularly. Where it most recently came up for me this morning was in the column of exercise regularly. And if you haven't heard me talk about the foundational fitness habits before, I don't prescribe a specific number to what it means to eat well, as far as that means that you are hitting these specific calories or these specific food groups or anything like that. I don't subscribe to when I say sleep enough, it has to be exactly this many hours, or it has to include this many minutes of REM sleep. And certainly my passion when it comes to training, when I say exercise regularly, I also don't prescribe a specific, so that means you need to have at least 3 lifting sessions, at least 2 cardio sessions, at least 1 mobility session. I don't prescribe those particular things. Now, do I make suggestions and recommendations for individuals? Absolutely. And also, there's a reason that each of those things, or why I've really engaged and attached myself to the way that each of those things is worded. Again, eat well, sleep enough, and exercise regularly. So for myself, as I was thinking this morning, as I was exercising, ironically, and jotted down the flexibility you want is rooted in the structure you are avoiding, is that I really am passionate about having flexibility when it comes to how I train. I enjoy being able to maneuver through different training modalities, whether it be more the bodybuilding style, whether it be more of what's been come to be known as the CrossFit style, whether it's some really marriage of the two, which is at this point, like I coin it as functional bodybuilding. Shout out Marcus Philly for really kind of bringing that particular style to the forefront. So I really pride myself and really enjoy being able to be flexible with how I express myself through exercise, with how I define exercise regularly for myself. So it's one thing to exercise regularly, I guess, with the frequency. It's another thing for that to be effective. Before I was able to really identify and feel like I was in a place to say, yeah, I'm really flexible. Like I have flexibility with how I exercise. Before getting to that point, I had to follow a structure. I had to follow a particular plan. I had to really get a good understanding of the basic foundations of each of the modalities that I was really interested in. So I first was introduced to exercise in the form of primarily resistance training, bodybuilding, when I first decided to take my fitness and health seriously the first thing I did was I bought a Men's Health big book of exercises, and that primarily contained a whole lot of bodybuilding style movements. And then I think I was in combination of buying that book, and then I also bought magazines at that time. Yeah, physical printed magazines. I mean, I am 47 here. So that was my introduction. I followed a particular plan. Then when I wanted to kind of dig into more of the CrossFit world, my now brother-in-law, actually the way that I was introduced to CrossFit as far as being able to actually get into a box and take classes, my brother-in-law happened to give me a gift certificate for a local CrossFit box when we moved to the place that we currently live now. So I went to structured classes. I received fantastic, to this day, some of the best instruction that I've ever had on proper movement. And along the way, as I was going through those particular classes, I also got a really good understanding of the importance of recovery, understanding how to really get a handle on how much was too much, how much was enough. And some of you who might be like massive CrossFit haters might be like, yo, you actually learned something about like how much is too much while doing something that would prescribe like 75 snatches for time. Yeah, I did, because I was blessed to be in the presence of really, really solid coaches. Back in the day, the first box that I ever joined is now defunct. However, I visited other boxes, and I don't know, God was looking out for me, because I just happened to have typically, for the most part, had pretty solid instruction at most of the boxes that I've been to. I'm getting a little bit off the topic. What I want to point out there is the flexibility that I now believe that I have, when it comes to being able to exercise regularly in the style that I want to exercise in, and feeling like I can very easily adapt or adjust or pivot to cardio one day, lifting the other day, going through maybe more of a bodybuilding style cycle, then perhaps switching over to more of a functional bodybuilding cycle, then perhaps going to something that's maybe a bit more of like athletic performance. Then I've also done different cycles where it's been more like the power building style, where there's some big heavy powerlifting movements, and then also some bodybuilding principles that are in there. So kind of that hybrid. The flexibility that you may see from me is rooted in my ability to follow a structure from quite a while ago. So when I write this statement, and when I think about this statement, the flexibility you want is rooted in the structure you are avoiding, then I think about the conversations that I will have with folks and some of the back and forth where they're looking for the ability to be flexible. They want this flexibility. Let's stay in the lane of exercise. This certainly, I believe, can be, what's the word that I'm looking for? This can definitely be applied to your sleep patterns. This can definitely be applied to your nutrition. However, just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to keep it in the exercise lane. I will talk to folks, and they want to do a whole lot of different things. They want to go to their group class that's more like, say, like a Les Mills style, like a body pump sort of a thing, or perhaps it's like a boot camp, or perhaps it's Orange Theory, or perhaps it's CrossFit or F45, or name whatever it may be. They want to be able to do that, and also they also want to be able to do bodybuilding or hypertrophy or resistance training or strength training, whatever umbrella you want to put it underneath. They want to be able to do that. And then, perhaps they are, they're in a friend group, and their friends have decided like, hey, we want to go ahead and train for a 5K. So they want to do that too. And I'm the last person who's going to say you can't do any of those things. What I do, and I believe that most of my clients would back me up on this, hopefully they would co-sign on this. What I will do is I will say, okay, that sounds good. Let's put some structure to it. Because there's a difference between, like the vision that I'll give, there's a difference between I want to vacuum all the different rooms in my house. So I'm just going to send this robot vacuum all over the place. Like I call it the Roomba approach to fitness, where you'll eventually get to every room. It's just you have no idea like when or how or how long it's going to take or anything like that. So it's that robot vacuum. Let's picture that you have a one floor like ranch style, and it's just going from room to room. It might get half of one room, then move to the other one. So it's just kind of dabbling all over the place versus getting an understanding of, okay, we've got 5 different rooms that we need to vacuum. Let's go ahead and we're going to dedicate a certain amount of time to this room, and we're going to use like a Dyson. So we're just going to get those nice straight lines, dedicate some time to this room. We may not get that one completely finished. However, we dedicated the time that we needed to, and now we're going to switch to this other room. There's a purpose and there's a plan. And back to what I jotted down, there's a structure to it. So there is definitely an opportunity for that flexibility to be able to do many different things. However, what I find is that folks are looking at it as like a ready, instead of ready, aim, and fire, they're looking at it as ready, fire, and then aim. So what we're missing in the approach is still identifying what is the structure going to be that we are going to utilize to then deploy our resources being our physical energy, our mental energy, and then just our time. How are we going to strategically employ those particular things in order to dedicate the needed time to do what we want to do with some semblance of quality? So the flexibility that you are seeking and that you want, it's rooted in structure, and you may likely be avoiding putting that structure in place because you're looking at the structure as a square that you stay within versus a box that you use as your foundation to jump off of. So the structure that you are avoiding right now, I want to challenge you this week, if you're listening to this on a Monday or Tuesday or whatever it is, for the next 7 days, I want to challenge you to really take a look at a particular area, whether it's in the eat well, the sleep enough, or the exercise regularly. Pick one of those areas where you really enjoy having flexibility and take the time to reflect on what does your current structure look like in that particular area that promotes you having the ability to be flexible. Is it something that you need to work on building? Is it something that's pretty solid and you perhaps need to make a couple of tweaks so that you can maintain the flexibility that you have? So to close this out, I'll tell you that for myself, this is front of mind, especially this week, because when it comes to my training, again, I said right from the top, I really, really value having flexibility with all things related to my training. I value being able to train when I want, to train how I want, all sorts of things. And what I found as I was evaluating things at the end of this past week is that I was getting a little, the scientific term, loosey-goosey with my focus while I was training. I was pulling up stuff on my iPad. I was thinking about like 4 different things with a client program. I was looking at stuff on my phone. It was pretty bad. I at sometimes would have literally 4 devices, like 2 phones, an iPad, and a MacBook pulled up that I would kind of just randomly navigate at times between during my rest breaks and workouts that ideally should take maybe an hour and 10 minutes at most. We're taking 2 to 2.5 hours because I was allowing myself to be completely unfocused. And in my head, I was like, yeah, I have this great amount of flexibility. And the challenge that I gave to myself is, what can you do this week to really rein things in, refocus, and re-engage the structure that has allowed you to train with the flexibility that you want at the times that you want and things like that. So that's what I am currently working on right now. So if this sparked some sort of thought process for you and more hopefully action for you, I'd love to hear about it. Shoot me a message on Instagram. It's at Coach JK McLeod. That's MCLEOD. Or you can email me, jk@jkmcleod.com. Again, McLeod is spelled MCLEOD. JK is spelled with a J and a K. Mind blowing, I know. All right. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.